What is going on, everyone? So today I'm going to talk about what happened to my 2015 Ultra Classic. Kind of a bittersweet story with it. That was my third Harley I've owned, and how I bought that bike is also a story in itself. So let's just start from the beginning. I first purchased that bike in 2016 as a used model. It was a decommissioned rental bike, and funny enough, I bought the bike in May of 2016, and in February of 2016 I actually rented that exact bike. Thought it was pretty interesting because what happened was I had a 2016 V-Rod that had a bunch of issues with it, and I was basically fed up with the bike, and I went to Harley and said, you know, I want to get out of this bike. I've been having a bunch of issues with it, and you're the ones doing all the work, so let's go ahead and you guys buy it back and I'll pick something from your lot. And that's exactly what they did. They bought that bike back with almost full retail price. I think they only took off like less than $1,000 for what I paid for it, because it had about 3,000 miles on it when I traded it in. And I was looking on the lot and I saw that 2015 Ultra, and I was like, you know, I rented one of those two to 3 months ago, and I really enjoyed it. So I saw the one that basically had the most miles and the cheapest price, and it just so happened to be the exact bike that I rented in February. So I went ahead and purchased it, and they gave me a warranty with it and a bunch of stuff, and it was a nice deal. And I had that bike for 6 years and had 3 problems with it throughout the 35,000 miles I put on it. The first problem it had was I have 4 problems now that I think about it. So the first problem it had was the kickstand spring. Oddly enough, the kickstand spring was the first thing to go. I actually did a video on it, how to put it back together, and again, people ripped me apart on that as well, which whatever. And so putting the kickstand back together, that was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was I trailered the bike down to Nashville, Tennessee, or up to Nashville, Tennessee, and I was going to meet up with my dad. We were going to go camping, and we were going to go ride to Jack Daniel's distillery and do the distillery tour, which we ended up doing. But what happened was I was noticing the shifter was kind of loose and it wasn't fully engaging, and I get to the dealership and I put it first and it doesn't really go in, and then it kind of goes in, and I shut the bike off. It was on an incline, so no big deal. And my dad goes in, rents the bike. We come back out and the bike won't go into neutral, and I'm kind of looking at it. I'm looking at the shifter and the shifter linkage on the external, and it's just limp, like nothing's happening. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna break down, it's best to be in a Harley, right? So I go into the dealership and I'm like, hey, my shifter won't engage. They knew exactly what it was. It was the shifter linkage broke, and it was on the internal, wasn't the external one, the ones that you can see. Like it wasn't this one, it was inside the casing. So they said, well, we can fix it if we had the part. They didn't have the part, so ended up renting a bike and brought it to the dealer at Texas, and within like 5 hours they had it fixed with a new rear tire, a new rear brake, because I had them do it because I needed it. And then I rode the bike for 2 years, no issues. And then one day I looked down the side and there's oil coming out, and the rocker cover was leaking. So rode it to the dealership that actually I traded it in at, and said the rocker cover was leaking and it needed a new front tire. So I was like, let's put a new front tire on it. And this was kind of a twofer, because it went in for the rocker cover replacement, and they replaced it. And when they had the front tire off, he asked me, he's like, is there anything wrong with the front end? Does it feel weird in any way? And I was like, well, it does kind of do this at 15 miles an hour. He's like, okay, we'll take a look at it. And they took a look at it, and turns out the front wheel bearing was loose. Wasn't right, and they brought it back to, they kind of did more investigations, and they found out that the front brake rotors were warped, and they fixed all of that under warranty. I mean, I just had to pay for the tire itself, but taking it on and off and all that was covered by warranty. So my, you know, I think they charged like 50 bucks a tire, so I saved that money. Got a new rocker cover, got a new tire, got a new front bearing, got new front brakes. All that was under warranty, minus the actual rubber of the tire, and rode the bike for another year after that. No issues. Saw that I had my rear tire was worn out again, so I went to go ahead and got the rear tire replaced. So I guess I went through, mystery why I don't get good gas mileage on this thing. So went through a bunch of tires on it, really no issues after that. And then I did the rocker locker pin video and rode the bike. After that there was no issues. And then one day I was riding home, just did an oil change, had 150 miles on the oil, and going down the highway, and all of a sudden the bike just kind of stuttered and then just shut off. And looking down at the gauge, the engine didn't lock up because the back tire didn't lock up. It was like a heavy decel. And after looking at it further more, the bike wasn't turning, it wasn't like actually running, it would turn over. So I coast to the side of the highway, get off of it, looking around. I don't see any oil sticking out or no metal parts hanging around. The electronics are fine. It doesn't even throw a check engine code. I don't even know that's the thing. And I hit the starter motor, and I hear the engine like it's cranking over, but it's not. It's cranking faster than normal. Like you know, with the Harley or any bike, you know when it hits a compression stroke and the motor kind of bogs, the starter motor bogs down, then kind of kicks back up. Well, that's exactly what it wasn't doing. It wasn't bogging down like on a compression stroke. So, and it smelled like I was smelling gasoline, so it was getting fuel. It was convenient that I broke down next to a U-Haul. So I went to Home Depot and got a trailer because the U-Haul was closed by the time I was going to get the truck and get back, and get the bike home. And I wanted to test for spark because I could smell gasoline. And I took the spark plugs out, and they smelled like gasoline, but they didn't have any oil on them. They didn't have any metal shavings on them. They looked like 50,000 mile spark plugs. And I go to test the spark by grabbing the lead or the spark plug wire and turning the motor, because I was putting it next to the screwdriver, and I got shocked. So I knew that was working. So, but I was like, you know what, they're probably worn out and it needs new plugs. So I went out, bought new plugs, bought new wires, put them on, hooked it up, and still nothing. It was still cranking fast, like there was no compression. So I went ahead and got the compression test tool on there, and both cylinders are reading zero psi. Doesn't even, the needle's not even flickering. And I put my thumb over the spark plug hole, and nothing's coming out. So I was like, all right, both cylinders have zero compression. Maybe it's a cam, maybe it's the top end, and I screwed up with the rocket lockers. Like, what happened? What did I do? So I go ahead and take down the rocker cover, or take it off, and I'm looking at the rockers, and they're tight. There's no issues with the valves. None of them look bent. Nothing was out of place. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll take the top cylinder off and take the jugs out and see if like the cylinder walls are scored, or you know, are the cams rubbed? Are they just gone? And the bike sat for 10 months. That happened February of 2021, and I never got around to it. The bike just kind of sat there in the pieces, and I started filming. I was like, all right, let's do an investigation, and just never got around to it. And then my wife made the fatal mistake of leaving me alone on Saturday, and it was kind of rainy, so I couldn't do my outdoor activities. So I said, screw it, I'm going to Harley. Let's see what I can do. And 4 hours later, here we are. We're on our lowrider S. We're making videos again. We're having a good time. So, yeah, that's really what happened to the 2015 Ultra. It just shut off on the highway one day, and that's all she wrote. So, stay tuned for more content. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.